Okay, welcome teachers to the third video of our SLO series over the Harmony Observation Tool. You should have completed step 1 and step 2 at this point. Now we're ready for step 3. Again, we open up with the staff list screen, and I'm going to use Mrs. Puckett from down at the elementary. And I'm going to find her. You should just see your name on this list. Again, go to the blue silhouette of the head, click that, drop it down. At this point you should be pretty familiar with where your SLO is. Right here in the third rung, hit Add SLO. Now we have the SLO menu. We've completed step 1, we've completed step 2, now we're ready for step 3. So we're going to click on step 3, and that's going to open up the student learning objectives. This is one that should be familiar. Many of you remember this from the paper forms, and some of you from last year when we did this. It looks like a lot of work, but hopefully I'm going to explain this in good enough detail that it won't cause too much problem for you. Number 1, you want to make sure that you hit the select one here and find the class that you want to use for your SLO. Make sure it is your class SLO. Once you click that, it would be up there. You would have a whole class list. Mrs. Puckett does not because she's not one of our teachers, but you would have all of yours listed. Under SLO pre-work, let's start first with any teacher that has I-STEP. If you are an I-STEP teacher, I'm going to begin from here. So what you're going to do is I'm going to say that I am an English Language Arts middle school teacher who is I-STEP tested. So I would put in here as my approved assessment English Language Arts I-STEP. Okay. Now what's my approved mastery score? Well, that's an easy one. That should be pass. I want my students to pass. I'm going to put in some numbers now. I have 2 students who are at the high level. I had 8 students at the medium level, and I had 12 students at the low level. So at this point I had 2 in the previous year that were pass plus. I had 8 that were at pass and 12 that did not pass. So this is a very important year for me to get these 12 to pass. So that's what it would look like at that point. As I would go down into my primary, it's going to use the following directions to write your class learning objective. I'm not going to read these to you, but basically this is the point where you decide how many students out of a number would give you highly effective, how many students would give you effective if they passed, how many would be improvement necessary, and how many would be ineffective. Now I've listed 22 students at the top here out of my total. So I'm going to go down here, and this is what I'm going to list. I'm going to list the following. In that first selection, I've decided to list at least 17 out of 22 students achieve pass or pass plus on the I-STEP. This, again, is something that you can sit down with your evaluator and decide, is that a good number? Is that a number that is good for me as a teacher, as an instructor? Is this a number that's good for my students? Can be something collaborative that you sit down and discuss, or it could be you just put in the number and you just send it, submit it, and hope that it's approved, but it should be something that both of you agree on. So as I go through, I'm going to finish the last 3 boxes here and what I would put down. In the last box, I will change it to fewer than 8. Okay, once you have completed that list, as you can see here, I have 17 out of 22 students. If that happens, I'm highly effective and I receive a 4. If 14 out of 22 receive the pass, I get an effective 3. 8 out of 22, I get a 2, which is improvement necessary, and fewer than 8 is ineffective. Those numbers are pretty solid. I would say that that's a good number for everyone in that category. Kind of work with your evaluator to see what works. So that's the beginning if you're an I-STEP tested teacher. It tells you what your assessment is, what your level of preparedness is, and then it shows you how to fill out the numbers. The same would work for a teacher that is not I-STEP tested, but it may be switched up a little bit. It may be that your rather than an I-STEP, let's say you're a high school teacher, and it would be your biology pre and post test. And you might actually have a 70% here. And let's leave the numbers the same. So how would you change that down below? You would go down and say at least 17 out of 22 students will achieve %70 or greater on the pre and post test. On the, would be post test, because you've already given the pre-test. And then you would fill that in on through the rest of the way. You'd have 14 students, they would achieve 70%. So I'll just go ahead and put in 70% here. Achieve another 70%. Again, these numbers are determined by you and approved by your administrator. So your 70% has to be approved. Your number of students passing have to be approved. It's just something you sit down with your administrator and figure out. So that's how that would change if you were a non-I-STEP tested teacher, if you were just using your pre-test or post-test. Okay, so those are the two different formats, and you can, if you don't understand that and you still have questions, you can always see Mr. Bright or myself for more clarification. But that's the pre-work, and that's the primary section where you list the number of students. Now we go to the secondary, which is considered your targeted. Okay, if we're the targeted, let's go back and let's see if we can go back to that I-STEP. And I'm just going to go ELA I-STEP at this point. I'm going to go back to pass. Okay, so I have that back in there. Now let's go down here to where I have to make my targeted objective. In my targeted objective, I need to find targeted Indiana content standards that I need to look at. So if I'm looking at those standards, let's say for my ELA I've decided to pick standard 4, which I believe is writing, process, and features, and maybe standard 5, which is writing applications. And then let's put in one more, standard 6, which is writing English language conventions. Let's just put conventions for that one. Okay, and let's put my targeted population of students would be my lowest number of students. So in this group it would be 12. I don't have to put anything down, I just have to know it's 12. Okay, because it's my low group. My approved assessment at this point is the I-STEP, the English Language Arts I-STEP. And then for my growth and or achievement goal, I have to decide how many of my students are going to, out of that 12, are going to successfully pass or get a certain achievement goal in standard 4, standard 5, and standard 6. That one is a little difficult. It's one where you have to sit down. For me to describe it to you now in the video would probably confuse you. It's one where you have to sit down with your administrator and probably work on that one a little bit to decide what's a good number and how do you want to do that. Now, if you're not using the I-STEP, and many of you don't have to use the I-STEP for your class objective, this could be standards for your, let's say, just pick, and I'm just going to put them in because I'm not going to list them right now for the sake of time, 3 biology standards. We'll go back to the biology class. Okay, so that's pretty simple there. I'm not going to list the standards. Now you would obviously list the standards. Your approved assessment is your biology. If I get my fingers to work today, biology post-test or end-of-year test. And then your achievement level could be, okay, you have 12 students. Let's say that you want 6 of 12 students to achieve 65% or greater on all questions relating to, and again I'll put it in parentheses, 3 biology standards. Now you would list the standards. Now, I know that's confusing, and again you can meet with us to get more clarification on that, but that's kind of how you would do that to make that work. I'll give you another example. Let's say you're a high school drama teacher and you have a student performance rubric as your assessment. You have 3 students. You might put down there that 2 out of 3 targeted students will achieve a score of 4 out of 6 or higher on the student performance rubric assessing student mastery of the Indiana academic standards. That might be something. Again, that's confusing to some of you, but this one really is one you want to work with your administrator on to make sure you have. Now, here's the long and short of the whole process here. If you are using the same assessments that you used last year, then the approved assessment will be the same. Your mastery will be the same. Your numbers may change because you may have a different number of students in the class in this level, but also this will change a little bit based off of numbers, but your mastery score may not change. So a lot of this might be cut and paste, and again, your target objective might be cut and paste. This is a little bit longer of a video, and I understand it's a little bit more confusing, but you need to make sure that if you have any questions or any concerns, you find Mr. Bride or myself, and we discuss these with you to make this as easy of a process for you. So I'm going to cut this off because it's getting up over 13 minutes, and that's a little longer than I'd like. So step 3 is one of the more difficult steps, and again, if you have any questions, feel free to find us and ask for our guidance on this. I appreciate you watching, and have a great day.